Good day, and I am Danette Batiste, the CEO and Executive Director of Healthy Heart Nation, and I want to invite you to join us today on a heart-to-heart conversation on how to maintain a mindset of excellence. This evening, my guest is Mr. Bill Clay, and it is my pleasure to introduce to some and those who don't know him, my mentor and my friend. Bill has been retired for more than 25 years from AT&T after working for them for over 30 years. Prior to his employment with AT&T, he served with the U.S. Air Force as an air traffic controller. He also worked for Mammoth and Prudential life insurance companies as a salesman and sales manager. Bill likes to point out that his working career began when he was 12 years old, and he purchased his paper route of 75 customers and sold it for 4 years later after growing his route to 300 customers. This was when his sales career began. His sales prowess as a paperboy won him trips to New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Niagara Falls, and even London. Bill has been active in promoting equality for Black people starting in 1964 while serving in the Air Force. In Japan, he led a demonstration protesting the segregated bars and clubs that would not serve Black airmen. He continued his activities in civilian life by serving on the Southern California Committee of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the Los Angeles Urban League, and as a board member and a vice chair for 7 years for those organizations. He founded the National Black Business Council. Bill served 5 years as president of CITIES, a Black ERG that was started in 1969 for employees of Pacific Bell. Bill was also a founding member of Network, which was a merger of various national Black employee groups in AT&T and Bell Labs. He served for 7 years on a multicultural task force for SBC. Bill was appointed by the Los Angeles Council and the Los Angeles Board of Education to a task force on improving educational opportunities for students. He participated in the Urban League's Black Executive Exchange Program, BEEP, for HBCUs. He was a board member and treasurer of Challengers Boys and Girls Club in South Central Los Angeles, Pop Warner football coach for 5 years, Scoutmaster and board member of Thunderbird Scout District. He was mentor in an after-school program at Horace Mann Middle School, participating in an organization that provided enrichment opportunities for inner city children. That took them to camping in the mountains, day trips to the beach, and museums during the summer months. Bill is Prince Hall's past master Shriner and a 33-degree Mason. He is married to the gorgeous Virginia Clay and has 5 impressive and accomplished daughters and 4 amazing grandchildren. Bill is on speed dial for hundreds of nieces, nephews, colleagues, and friends as he continues to pour into the lives of anyone in need. And so with that, I welcome my guest, Bill Clay.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. That's it's kind to say, who is that guy? He's done a lot.
I was just going to say, how does it feel when you hear that introduction? You're like, wow, how did you find the time, first of all? Like, let alone getting it done, but the time to really pour yourself into those things and not just to do them, but to do them well.
Well, one of the things I've learned that when you have a passion for something, you'll make the time. You know,
okay.
It's just right. That simple. You know, I have no other explanation other than, you know, the things I got involved in, I had a passion for, and I felt for. So therefore, my time was, you know, that was it. I mean, at one time, I was the president and the master of my lodge. I mean, back in I think it was 1979 or 78, I was the president of master of my lodge, and president of another organization. So that I was so busy, so that I had 4 different briefcases in my trunk. Instead of taking things, I found that it became, you know, rather cumbersome, and I would miss something when I would pull items out and say, okay, I'm going to this meeting, so I need this. So I just had to. I said, "Oh, this is my city's briefcase." So I grab it. This is my Masonic briefcase. So I grab that.
So they were different colors, or you just had something to differentiate?
No, they were just different briefcases. You know, different.
Okay.
I've went through the whole gamut of briefcases through my career, the different types you could have. You know, but it was just my way of trying to be organized and efficient at the same time, you know.
Okay. And as I mentioned in the introduction, you are my mentor, you know, and so I am so blessed to be able to benefit from your wisdom, your knowledge, your passion, you know, your compassion at the same time, and you know, your words of wisdom and your thoughts that you share with me daily and you share with others daily. So one of the questions that I have is, you know, as you're attempting to do different things in life, there are times when it feels like you need to prioritize, right? And to be able to focus. So how do you give your best and your all when you're attempting to accomplish different things and you have so many things going on at one time?
Well, the first thing I like to start off is your physical and mental health.
Okay.
You know, you got to be, you know, you can't, you know, the old saying is, you know, a tired mind, you know, a tired body creates a tired mind. But so I focus on that, you know, exercise and keeping myself physically fit was the thing that gave me the stamina and endurance to deal with stress, as you know, because they're you know, stress tears you down, but you have to have that. So you got to take care of yourself physically, you know, first, you know, and so that's the first step is you got to have health, because if you don't have health, you don't have anything else.
All right. And so being healthy allows you to you know, have the awareness of mind, body, and spirit to be able to give what you need to give and the various tasks that you're assigned.
Yes, and I find that a lot of people don't put as much time into that. You know, I used to get up at 4:30 in the morning and run 3 to 5 miles every morning, 7 days a week. Regardless of what I did, I might come in at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock when I was younger from the club, but at 4:30, I'm up and I'm on the street running.
Okay, so you've been a runner for how long? Like at what age did you embrace running?
Wow, very young, because I found that when I was younger, I wasn't always the fastest guy, and I didn't jump the highest, but I could last the longest. My endurance was better than everybody else. I didn't get tired, you know. I just keep going, you know. So I've always been kind of, you know, athletic and doing things. Not only did I do the running, you know, I played in basketball tournaments, games, you know, frat tournaments and stuff. Anytime I would be played, you know, I was always doing something, you know, that was athletic, whether it was basketball or guys saying we got a pickup softball game. Good, I got my glove and ball. I'm ready, you know. And you know, so I've always been active. Now, as as you know, what happened is as I got older and got more responsibilities, a family, and then more responsibilities on the job, then I had to be very dedicated. I had to be very dedicated in terms of what I did. So my exercise regimen always was in the morning.
So the discipline comes in the morning, so that
in the morning, because I find that you can't be consistent in the afternoon because things happen during the day. You know, you might say, well, I'm gonna exercise at 5 o'clock, and then come around that day, oh, I got to do something. Something came up, and I got to work on something, and so therefore you miss it. So I found that by me getting up and exercising in the morning, number one, it made me feel good physically, but mentally, because I had accomplished something already.
So it just so everything else is gravy on top.
Everything else is just gravy. So I had to roll out the day, you know, with a smile on my face. I'm ready to tackle it. After taking a good shower and everything, and also feeding my mind, because one of the things I used to do, I used to run And then years ago, I lived in a place that had a gym and it had a
Okay.
sauna. So
Okay.
once I complete my run, I used to pick up the newspaper that
Okay.
would be delivered. And then I go sit in the sauna and read the newspaper
Okay. And
and
just
then shower
detox and
and
right and all
detox
that.
and
Yes.
shower, detox in terms of the body, infuse my
Okay.
mind in terms of what's going on in the world
Right.
today. And then I
Yeah.
go out and start my day in terms of my professional day.
Right. And then also with the running, and when you were running
Mhm,
outside, you were getting
mhm.
sunlight, you were getting
Yes.
the fresh air.
Mhm.
You were probably able to work out some things in your mind as you were running in terms of looking at your day and how you were going to go about it. Did you run to music or did you run to your thoughts
I
and your
ran to my
plans for the day?
thoughts because I
Okay.
found that that was the time. See, in the morning I'd run, and as you said, I'd be thinking about my day, what I had coming
Okay.
up, okay,
Okay.
how I'm going to
Okay.
approach the day. And
Okay.
so I'm running to that and I'm listening to my body
Okay.
at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because there
Mm-hmm.
was some mornings, my body would say, Bill, you don't feel like this. So
Like,
then
don't go out there.
right. So then what I did, I would set short-term goals where I would usually run 5 miles. I would say,
Okay.
okay, well, I'm only going to run a mile.
Okay.
But once I got started, I'd
Right.
get to a mile and I said, oh, I feel pretty good. I'm gonna keep
Interesting.
going. And so
Okay.
I would, and ultimately I'd end up accomplishing whatever it is I set out to do, even though when I started mentally
Hmm.
and physically, I didn't feel like it.
Okay.
But
So
by
did
the
you set a time limit or it was about like accomplishing a certain number of miles or whatever the case may be?
It was
Would you
just
say I need this?
accomplishing the
Okay.
goals, and I used to
Okay.
set even when some days, some days would be easier than others, and some days I'd be
Yeah.
struggling, and so
Hmm.
I'd set a goal. I'm just going to run to that point, and then I'd
Okay.
get to that point, and I'd say, okay, I'm going good. Let me run to the next point. I'd set some
Okay.
other. So you set
Okay.
little mini goals along the
Sure.
way instead of if I use an example, if you
Hmm.
were going out and you wanted to climb out Mount Everest, you wouldn't
Okay.
immediately always automatically think of I'm going to jump to the top. You think
The
of
very
each
top.
step that you take that's going to
Hmm.
lead to that. You're going to get to
Hmm.
a point, then you're going to get to a landing, and you're going to get somewhere, and you're going to rest for the night. Then you're going to
Hmm.
make that final ascent.
Right.
So each those mini goals. See what I found a lot of people do is they'd
Hmm.
get up and they'd say they felt like I would feel sometimes in the morning and say, I don't feel good. So I don't think I'll run this morning because I don't really feel that good. And I don't think I'm
Hmm.
going to go that far. Well, number one, they have immediately created a
Feed
negative
it themselves. Right.
in their own mind because they know they
Right.
haven't accomplished that goal.
Right.
You know
Right.
that. Nobody
Right.
else has to know that. That's something you
Hmm.
know internally.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that you didn't accomplish that goal. You put it off. So
Hmm.
I used to force myself.
Hmm.
I literally forced myself at times, but it got
Okay.
easier, as I got older, and then I got to a point where my knees just wore out,
Yeah.
and
Right.
I'd inherited what is part of my inheritance. I had to have both my knees replaced,
Okay.
and
At the
I had
same
both.
time you did it. You did
I
it at the
had them
same
both
time.
replaced at the same
Okay.
time.
Okay.
And the only reason and I was 70 years old when that
When that
happened,
happened. Wow. Yes.
and the only reason the surgeon said he did it, he said two things. He said, number one, I can see you in good physical shape for your
Hmm.
age.
Right.
Number two, knowing what I know about you, you will be dedicated to the rehab.
Exactly, because you wanted to get back to the life
Right.
that you had
So,
to get back to.
in fact, I would get in when I got into rehab, my physical therapist, sometimes she'd say, okay, well, go over here and do 20 of these. And I'd go over and I might do 30. I said, I did 30. She said, I told you to do 20. Now stop trying to do more than I asked you. See, so I
Right.
was always pushing the envelope. That's
Right.
just part of my
Right.
nature.
Right.
If
Now,
possible, I
so
try to.
right. And so back to your Mount Everest thing.
Mhm.
And so it was your analogy. It's for you, it's about the journey, right? It's
Right.
not about, where you're trying to go, but it's the journey to get there. And
Right.
then we were talking earlier this week, and you were telling me about, that Super Bowl story, right? And can you share with us a little bit about that, where you went to a story and someone said, "Oh, there are going to be older people there."
Oh
One of the
yeah,
two.
yeah,
Tell me
yeah.
that.
I was,
Share that one with
I
us.
was, I was went to a Super Bowl party,
Hmm.
and person mentioned, said, "Well, there's going to be some older people there,
Uh-huh.
so you know you got to get used to that." So as I'm walking in, I
Hmm.
introduced myself to a guy that's walking in and and he told me all this. He said, well, he looked older than I did.
Okay.
And he was, had a little stomach, a lot of gray hair, which is nothing wrong with gray hair. Everybody's got
Right.
that. I just
Right.
don't have
Right.
as much on my head right now. If I let it grow out, you'd see it's great. But when I asked him, I said, well, how old are you? He said, young
Young
man. He
man.
said, we were going upstairs. He said, young man, get in. And I said, well, how old are you? He said, 66. I said, hell, man, I'm almost 80 years old. What are you talking about? He said, you the young man. And then when I got in there, I was 8 to 9 years older than everybody there.
Right, but you're acting, and in terms
But
of the way your vitality is,
right.
it's very, age is a number. It's more than a number. It
Yeah.
is the way you think, the way you look at life, and the way you embrace different things. So
Well,
one
I'm
of
gonna
the
tell
other.
you I'm gonna tell you another anecdote that one of my doctors. I was going in to see
Okay.
my neurologist, and
Okay.
this was a new neurologist I had not met
Okay.
with before.
Okay.
And so first came in one of the third-year residents came in and
Mhm.
talking, and the first thing she said, "Whoa!" When I looked at your chart and I walked in and I saw you, I didn't expect to see this. I thought you look I would have thought you in your
Patient.
early 60s. I mean, literally. And so
Right.
then the attending doctor came in
Uh-huh.
and said the same thing. Said, "Is this the same man?" I just looked at the chart, and this man's supposed to be almost 80 years old, and you're sitting
Right.
here, and I wouldn't have guessed it. So, I said it's a combination. I don't attribute it all. It's a combination of genes.
Yes.
I take care of myself, and I eat right.
Yes. There you go.
I try to watch what I eat.
Right.
And don't do anything to excess. And if I do, I try to compensate for it. Like,
Okay.
I have a sweet tooth, and over the
Okay.
holidays, I just couldn't resist sweet
Yeah,
potato
the
pie,
holidays they
banana.
get all of us. They get us all.
So I jumped into it,
You're
and
right.
actually, I literally put on 17 pounds.
Okay. Over this
But
holiday? Like, are we
over the
Thanksgiving,
holiday, but I
Christmas, New
lost
Year?
it in a month.
Okay. 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 With the same
Okay.
level of dedication that,
Right,
yeah,
because
that you bring everything.
what
Okay.
I do, I check my weight.
Mm-hmm.
There's three things that I check uh, daily to
Okay.
determine what my body's doing. I check
Sure.
my weight, I check my
Okay.
blood pressure, and I check
Okay.
my blood sugar,
Okay.
my blood glucose. I do
Okay.
that, and in addition to that,
Mm-hmm.
I've had for years I wore a Fitbit.
Okay. To
And I
track your
kept track
steps and your
of steps and
activity.
sleep.
Okay.
Now I have an Oura Ring and an
Yes.
Apple Watch.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I track all of this stuff, and when I get up in the morning, I
Mm-hmm.
check to see how did I sleep. Number one, how much
Right.
REM sleep and how much deep sleep did I get? The two critical
Yes.
elements of sleeping.
Right.
REM, which clears your mind, and
Sure.
deep sleep, your body. So
Right.
those are things I'm checking all the time, and I'm tracking.
Okay,
I,
so when we move from, so the number one key to maintaining a mindset of excellence, right, is
Mhm.
to make sure that you have good health. And so we're talking about the Aura Ring, and we're talking about kind of data. And that
Right.
is also takes us to your second step, which is continuous learning.
Right.
And so, that data and awareness that you have around your body allows you to what?
Well, what I put continuous learning down,
Mhm.
or as I used to say, curiosity. You got to
Mhm.
continue. A lot of people become stagnant. You
Right.
know, they get to a certain point and they feel they don't need to learn anything else. But the world is continually changing. And
Absolutely.
changing at a rapid pace. And if you go back and look at Alvin Toffler in his book, A Future Shock, he defined future shock as the anxiety created by the accelerated pace of society.
Okay.
And
Yes.
and he wrote that book in 1970.
And that's about just being overwhelmed.
Right. And so people
Versus
get
embracing.
overwhelmed. So
Yes.
I tend to, I'm constantly in a learning mode. Even though I've been retired 25 years, I haven't just sat at home.
Yeah.
I've continued to go. I've taken classes at Pasadena City College from Tai Chi to Spanish to what are some of the any photography. I've taken about 3 or 4 photography classes,
Sure.
Because that's something I have an interest in. That's just a
passion.
So,
and a passion too, right?
In addition to that, I continue to read. I read online. Several years ago, I finally stopped the delivery of the Los Angeles Times. Now I get it online.
Online. Okay.
And I take I also have the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and going back to my old hometown, the Detroit Free Press and the Michigan Chronicle.
Shout out Detroit. Sorry about the Lions.
But I read these things, just to see what's happening, what's being said.
Sure. So keeping your mind stimulated,
keeping my mind stimulated. And continuing to want to learn something new. Because when I meet some of my peers, most of my peers can't even figure out how to send an email. Yeah, my age. I'm just going to tell you the truth. They're having difficulty. And I told them, I'm on. I said, I'm on all of the things. In fact, I told my grandkids, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. Because I want to know what's being said and what's in use of the technology. I don't want to stay in the horse and buggy days.
Absolutely.
When we had analog phones and,
Now let's go back to the fact that in terms of your retirement, you retired a long time ago. You retired in your 50s, right? And there are so many people
53 to be exact.
53, I'm not even going to talk about how close that is to my age right now. But what we will say is that a lot of people are very concerned about, retiring. They feel like, people retire and then within a couple years they die. So what is your response to that?
Well, the reason what I have seen, let me just say my observation is that a lot of people retire and they don't do anything. They sit down.
Right.
They stop doing anything. The body was made to be moving. You have to keep it moving.
Your brain.
And your brain, so that's what causes and then people retire and they don't have a plan for retirement.
Right.
In other words,
so financial or otherwise.
Otherwise, and I'll say you take care of the financial. There are people I know who are financially, in fact, a good friend of mine is very well financially, but he ended up with his health and both his wife. He ended up with dementia, and his wife has Alzheimer's. And when I visited him in the home, he says, "Bill, I have a Rolls Royce in my garage, and I can't drive it. I have a home in Scottsdale, and I have a home in LA."
Right.
He has all these material things.
Sure.
But he can't take advantage of any of it.
Okay.
Now,
he slowed down his mind and his body in that particular instance. Okay.
Right. Now I'm not going to say that what I am doing, some people are just predisposed genetically to certain things.
Right.
But what I found, and I look at my mother. My mother lived to 92, but my mother knew at a particular point in time, she said, "I'm not going to drive anymore because my reactions aren't as good as they could. I can still drive, but I'm just not going to drive." And then she started doing word puzzles to keep her mind
stimulated. Absolutely.
To keep her mind stimulated. She would do
Yes.
word puzzles. But I know
Okay.
people who sit around and now they don't do anything but look at
Nothing.
the
Right.
TV and eat.
All right. Those are
Okay.
not good things, especially
No,
incrimination.
no,
Those are not
no.
good.
And they say,
Right.
well, I'm an old guy and do this. No, I'm still, I don't think I'm going to do anything that 20 or 30 or even 40 or when I was 50 years old. But
Sure.
I can still do things like my
Hmm.
daughter has, one of my daughters is, competes in triathlons,
Okay.
but she's entered her dad in 5Ks.
Right.
And the last one I was in, I didn't
Yes.
realize that they keep track. And she came back and she said, Dad, you finished 10th in your age group. And I was upset. I said, 10th. I said, now I'm going to work at this. Next year I'm coming in, better than 10th.
Right. How am I in 10th place? Right.
Yeah,
Right.
we're on 10th place. I'm still in the top 10, but see,
Right.
so what it
So
is
that
you
competitive
continue to strive.
edge.
The
Right.
competitive edge,
Absolutely.
it never
Right.
leaves.
All right. So we've got 2 down. We've got 4
Mhm.
more to go. So number
Okay.
1 is health. Number
Mhm.
2 is continuous learning. Let's move to our
Mhm.
third key, and that
Mhm.
is maintaining a positive attitude. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, one of the things that I've always been, most people know that Bill smiles. He has this big smile. I'm always smiling, and I have a positive attitude. I go out and I focus on keeping myself up. And I
Yes.
and I started this at a young age, as you
Mhm.
indicated in the opening, that I
Mhm.
started delivering newspapers when I was 12. And I used
Okay.
to cold call to get
Mhm.
customers, knocking on doors. And you got to
Right.
get used to no's, you
Right.
know,
Right. Right. Right.
and you just got to be persistent and you
Right.
got to stay positive and you go in and you smile. And then a lot of times, I found when I was younger, 12 or 13, and I'd
Mhm.
be talking to someone and I'd give my spiel. And they'd say, "Oh, isn't it cute? That young man really knows his stuff. And look at him; he got a nice smile, and he seems so upbeat." So
And you
I
were
knew.
probably dressed to the nines, so
Oh,
let's
I
not
was
get that
always
right.
that's another thing. Always looked apart.
Yes.
I
Yes.
I maintained. In fact, I
Mhm.
took pride in the little thing because this is just something that I had a thing for being raised by a single mother
Yes.
and being the youngest of three.
Mhm.
Um, I knew there were a lot of, and my mother had a great school education and she was a domestic and a cook. So it wasn't like she
Mhm.
was, we were rolling in dough,
Right.
so I wanted things like other kids. So I had to go hustle for them.
Sure. So
I
it
never,
wasn't her problem to get it for you. It became your desire
right.
to get it for
I,
yourself.
right. It
Right.
was my desire. And
Mhm.
then I enjoyed the fact that when I was younger, I always had money in my pocket.
Okay.
And when I started junior high school,
Okay.
I only wore sport coats and suits from junior
In
high
junior high school.
to junior high school through high school. And at one time I had 14 suits and I was 14 years old.
All right now, swap
I,
and debonair. Okay.
Yeah, but see, that was my ego. That's a waste of, I mean, when I think about it, but it was me. I needed that. I needed that to make me feel
Sure.
good.
No, and you and I
And,
talked about that as well. Like
mhm,
for me, the way I show up is the way I
mhm.
show up. So I
Right,
can't work
right,
from home in
mhm,
my my pajamas, or my mind isn't going to be where it needs to be. So I can
right.
completely understand that. So
And
when you started dressing like that and you were going into junior high, did you notice that it rubbed off on other people? Did people kind of raise themselves up to where you were versus you having to
well,
lower
I
yourself?
got a lot of compliments.
Okay.
The bill is always neat, and I remember when leather coats was coming out and stuff, and a lot of people didn't have real leather, and I bought me a
Okay.
real leather one, real
And you
nice soft
needed it
leather.
in Detroit. You needed
Right.
it.
But
Right.
I took pride in having the
Sure.
best. I wanted the
Okay.
best of everything, and I knew I had
Absolutely.
to. And I learned early on I had to go hustle for it. And
Okay.
I used to think that that's what I learned. The reason I mentioned that went from 12 to paper route
Yeah.
because that's what was my base learning. I learned most of
Okay.
what I needed to know then.
So your mind's a sponge and you're taking in everything that you need to take
taking in
in.
everything and being
Yes.
positive. I find that,
Yes.
I see a lot of people say, I want to get such and such. And I'd say, well, you walk around here scowling all the time. Don't nobody look, people like to do business with successful people.
Absolutely.
And if your countenance is one of, I'm always complaining about this or
Right.
complaining about
Right.
this, or when I get back to health, not showing up for work, taking
Right.
time off. I went
Right.
my first 5 years at AT&T, I never missed a day at work. And when I
Okay.
first missed it, it was only because I had knee surgery because of on-the-job accident.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I
But
got up
that's
every day. It's
right.
not that I felt like it. Some days I feel like, wow, I'd like to lay in here and just hug the pillow a little bit.
Sure.
But you
And
get
so
up
your
and
positive attitude allowed
Mhm.
you to maintain a certain level of your reputation, right? So
Right.
you became known as the person who had the positive attitude, who had the smile. People enjoyed being around you. And you shared with me a story at one point where you were working in your in a situation, and they said, "Bill, you smile too much."
Yes.
Can you tell a little bit about that story? I
Yes.
love that
It's kind of
story.
interesting. I had just started with the company then in the first job.
Uh-huh.
And I used to come into the office, and I smile and I speak to everybody. Hey, how you
Right.
doing? I go over and speak to everybody in the morning, going around and just talking and
Right.
smiling
Making
and
everybody
walking up.
feel good.
And
Right.
so, and so, this is old style thing. So, my district manager calls me in and he said, Bill, it's come to my attention, people notice you walk around here, you smile and you be walking fast and everything. And, people, and doing that, people might think you're not working.
Right. Although
With
you
that,
were achieving and
which it
exceeding. Yes.
puzzled me because I was
Right.
doing my job, I
Absolutely.
was excel. So
Absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out what does this have
What
to
are you
do with me
talking
doing
about?
my job? But
Right.
so
Right.
so what I did, I heard what he said. So I
Mhm.
started coming. I came in the office and I wouldn't smile. I just be, and then pretty soon people said, "What's wrong with Bill? What's wrong with Bill?"
How many days did you last? That probably was killing you.
Well, I lasted about 4 days, but he called me in.
Okay.
He called me in the office again. He
Right.
said, Bill, what's the problem? And I said, what do you mean? What's the problem? He said, well, people are saying something must be wrong with Bill.
Right.
He's walking around, he's not his normal self. And then I reminded him, I said, about a week ago, you told me that I was coming in here smiling and people was
Right.
thinking I wasn't working. So what is it? Which way do I go?
Right. Right.
See,
Right.
he wasn't they weren't, I guess he was operating under some old theory that if you seemed
Right.
happy and you were positive, you weren't really doing your job. I don't know where
Exactly.
that came from, but that's where
Right.
it was at.
Right. Right.
And,
There are legitimate sugar and jivers, you know what I mean?
mhm,
But you were
mhm.
getting your work done as well. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
the positive attitude, making other people feel good, enjoying what they were doing,
Mhm.
and seeing that you enjoyed what you were doing, made it positive for everyone. And so
And
that's how positive attitude has served you in the past. So
and
let's move
understand,
on to, oh, go ahead.
okay, no, go ahead. Go ahead. You
No, and I
know.
was going to say our next one, number 4,
Mhm.
is goal setting. So
Oh,
tell me
yes.
about how setting goals has served you and helped you maintain a positive mindset.
You know, you have to set goals. You
Okay.
know, if you want to accomplish something, achieve something, set some goals, and they should be
Okay.
meaningful and attainable. You
Okay.
know, and it should
Smart.
be and should
Smart,
be
right?
and should be time.
Right.
I mean, so I
Hmm.
always have goals.
Hmm.
I get up. I'm a task oriented person. I have goals now. I get up
Right.
and I keep a list. And I do
Hmm.
the grocery shopping at the house. And I keep a list. Anytime I see something's needed, I'll put it on my list.
Okay.
So, because I tell my wife, I can go in the grocery store and get out of there faster than you because I don't mess around. I go hit
And you
my
know which
goal.
aisles everything is like,
Yeah, I
right?
know where everything's at, and I don't dilly dally and say, let me look at this and pick that up. No, if it ain't on this list, I ain't looking at it. Because see, that's what goals do. It keeps you
Okay.
focused.
Okay.
Because if
Okay.
you don't have goals, it's easy to get you run into detours, and life is full of
Yes,
detours. And so
absolutely.
I used to like to describe having goals and stretching out and having my goals. It's like if I was planning a road trip back to my hometown of Detroit.
Okay.
Well, in the old days, I would go to AAA and I'd get a trip ticket and I'd get the map and
Map.
I'd map, okay, you're
Right.
going to go this highway and go there and everything
Mm-hmm.
else. Well, as you set out on that road
Mm-hmm.
and you set this goals and these steps you want to take, you're going to run
Mm-hmm.
into detours. Well,
Right.
what happened if I run in detour, I know where I need to get back on track. If you
Absolutely.
don't
Because you
know where
know
you're
where
going
you're
to go,
going.
you
Right.
keep going in another direction that's not where
Mm-hmm.
you want to go if you don't have a set goal in mind. You
Right.
let the
Right.
environment dictate where you're going to go. See, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't let the environment just dictate where I want to go. I
Right.
stayed true to.
Now I know you have a lot of stories that you could tell about any of this, right?
Oh yeah.
But what was like one goal that you set that you attained that stands out is as it relates to your life?
um, there's a lot that
That's
I could.
hard. I know. You just
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one that stands out.
because I know you have lots of them, but a
Yeah,
good
I
one.
think one, and I take pride in this because this was
Mhm.
something right before years before, about 7, 8 years before I retired. I took on an assignment,
Okay.
and it was an assignment in which they thought that the company hadn't won in this area at
Uh,
all. They were
mhm.
losing all over the country in this area.
Okay. Yes.
I won't mention the specifics, so I can. But with this, I
Mhm.
had goals. I said I applied everything I had learned up to that.
Wow.
My
Okay.
personal relationships with people, I learned it
Yes.
because this client had already decided they were going with someone else.
Okay.
The only reason they didn't pull the string is because the Olympics came into play
Okay.
in
Okay. Okay.
1984,
Okay.
and they delayed it. And so then I maintained. I went to everyone. I positioned myself with everyone in
Mhm.
this organization, not just
Okay.
the people at the top, people making the
Sure.
decisions, and then
The
even within my
influencers. Right.
and then even within my own company, because it got
Mhm.
to a point that I couldn't get what I wanted. I remember being back
Okay.
at Bell Labs and I wanted this, and I saw this particular product. I was talking to this scientist. I said, "What is this?" I was just walking around looking
Sure.
and asking, and he told me, I said, "God, I need that." I said, "My client needs that." He said, "Well, I can't do it. It's in the alpha stage right now. We can't do that." So I went to his boss, his vice president. He said, "No, Bill, I can't do that right now. We got to take it from alpha to beta and all,
Mhm.
all the steps."
Mhm. Mhm. The
And so,
processes. Right.
I left there feeling really dejected,
Mhm.
thinking, okay, I'm getting ready to lose this. And I'll never forget, I was got to the airport early, the Newark airport. I was in New Jersey.
Okay.
Got to Newark airport, got there early, and was having dinner at the hotel that was on the premises here. And I started thinking, I remember the chairman of the board had said, "You can't lose a case unless I'm involved."
Okay.
And so I thought, I knew somebody that worked because of my activity within the network in cities. I knew
Right.
people in the
Right. Your relationships.
And so I knew
Right.
somebody. And so I called this person, Christine. I said, "Christine, you work for the chairman?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you get me on this calendar?" This is on a Friday. I said, "On Monday."
Okay.
And she said, "Yeah, I think I can squeeze you in about 15 minutes in there." I said,
Okay.
"Great." And then I asked, I said, "Where do you live?" And she told me. I said, "I'm going to get a hotel near there. Can I come over to your house on Saturday and you brief me on how the chairman makes decisions?"
Yes. Because it's
And so
important.
I did that.
Right. Right.
And I followed her instructions. I walked into the chairman of the board's office, and sitting around were a number of group presidents, division
Okay.
presidents. One of them,
And that was a coincidence, right? That wasn't
right? It was
planned.
just a coincidence
Right.
because she had
Right.
just squeezed me in. I
Mhm.
guess he was having kind of a meeting or something with
More.
them.
It's Monday. Yeah.
And
So right.
yeah, and so
Uh-huh.
I'm walking in, and I'll never forget one of the individuals who I knew. He said, Hey, Bill, what are you in here? You in here? You got something on life support that you want to? But I ignored him. I focused straight on the chairman. I went
Right.
and did just what she told me. She said, "Don't bring a whole
Exactly. You've
bunch."
done your
He
research.
said
Right.
he's a reader. Don't bring a whole bunch of paper. You hit your key points, and I did that. And in 15 minutes, I was through. He said, "Bill, well, after lunch, you go back to Bell Labs, and they'll give you whatever you want." I went back to Bell Labs and they just said, I don't know who you know, but we got the word. No matter what you want, you can have it.
Right. You get it. Right. Because
Okay.
you didn't
Now,
give up.
because I didn't give up. And I
Yes.
had a goal. My goal, I'm going to win.
Right.
See, all I
Right.
was looking at is what it takes to win.
And you didn't care what was
And
going
I
to,
didn't.
you didn't care that it was like, you can't win this. You did not care.
Right. I wasn't,
Right.
many people were, would have deserted the ship and said, go do something else or something, But me, I didn't want to leave and feel like I could have easily said, okay, well, we lost all of our stuff. And so it's just, coming.
Right.
Now I would have been the scapegoat for this time. And I
Sure.
knew that.
Right.
But because I had that goal in mind,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you one other goal that I had. I
Okay.
remember when I was in the Air Force, and I remember we were at this base, and my buddy and some other guys, we were walking around. I saw these guys, man, come by. Now, man, they were sharp. Their uniforms were tailored, and they were looking good. Boots were looking like glass. And I said, man,
John, right.
I said, man, those guys are sharp. And one of the guys, I'll never forget his name. It was Frank. He was from DC. Frank said, man, you can forget that. They ain't got no black guys on there. And
he just told you exactly what you needed.
He told me what I wanted to do. I went and applied, and I became the first African American selected to the Air Force Honor Guard for this.
Yes, yes.
Only because I refused to accept the no.
Absolutely. Right.
And I had a goal. I went in, but I was also prepared. Now, understand, you can, if you aren't prepared, see, I had 2 years of ROTC when I was in high school. So, I was.
So you had some foundation.
Oh, I had foundation. Yes. So when I went in, so I've always set goals, and I continue to set goals today. I set goals for myself for things I want to accomplish.
Sure. Right.
And I think that's important.
It's very important.
If you're just operating at random and have no goals, just getting up in the morning and just going out and just doing, you're going to go whatever way the current's going to take you.
Right. And a lot of times people don't set goals because they're afraid to fail. But they really have to change. We have to change our mindset to be less afraid of failure and more afraid of not trying, like really not dedicating or trying, because you never know if you don't try.
That's true.
So those are the kind of things that are really important. It's very quick when you want something, your mind tells you you can't get that for whatever reason. You have to be able to talk yourself out of that mindset and keep moving forward to achieve the ultimate goal.
And you mentioned something. You mentioned something about most people don't do things because they're afraid to fail.
Yes.
But understand, failure is a process of life. You learn through failures. Okay.
Yes.
If you're failing, that means you're doing something.
Sure.
If you're not failing, you're not doing anything.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Right.
Right. It is okay. So let's move on to goal number 5 of 6. And that is relationship building. Keys to maintaining a mindset of excellence is you have to be intentional in your relationship building. So tell us a little bit more about this key.
Well, when I talk about relationships, I first start with one of the first things. You need to have the first relationship with your family.
Right.
Okay. As a father of 5 daughters, I wanted to make sure I'm in tune with them.
Sure.
And, as well as my other relatives, my sister and brother, and then other friends. And then you build out from there. You build out family relationships. You must, because people that don't have, I find people that don't have good family relationships, it tends to affect other aspects of their life.
Okay.
Okay. This is
Okay.
just my observation. Okay.
Sure.
And then, so you build family relationships. Then there's friends that you have, and when I say friends, see, that's something that's, you can maybe put on maybe a hand, because people
True
use that,
friends, not
true
acquaintances.
friends,
We're talking
not
about
acquaintances.
friends.
See, people use the
Right.
term friends loosely today,
Right.
you know,
Right.
but true friends,
Mhm.
you continue. And then further, community
Sure.
relationships. It was through my
Sure.
building of community relationship, my
Mhm.
activity in community relationship allowed me to be bold in my steps that I took internally within the company. Because guess what?
Absolutely.
I was, when I come to the table, I wasn't just Bill Clay, an employee. I was Bill
Right.
Clay, who happened to be involved in this organization and this
Sure.
organization and these
Yes.
organizations. And guess what? Power yields to superior power.
All right. Say that
And no,
again. That was a good one.
and nobody, and one of the things I learned growing up on the east side of Detroit, you might have a bully a guy come in, but if you gave a guy a good fight and stuff in old days, guess what?
Right.
They didn't want no more parts of you after that. But if you just
Right.
laid down and let them take advantage of you, you're going to have to deal
Sure.
with them every day. They're going to take advantage.
They're looking for you. They're
Right.
looking for
They're going to be
you.
looking for you because where's my Patsy at? I got to go, But see, they
Right.
didn't want no more
Right.
parts of me because
Sure.
I'm
Sure.
going to give you a good fight going in.
Okay.
And that's the
Okay.
same thing, the same attitude I took in my aggressive attitude about
Mhm.
what we're going to do for Black people. People can look,
Right.
I'd have people come sometimes people, I had people when, back in 1986, I was featured in Black Enterprise magazine.
Okay.
And I was featured because of my involvement in the employee resource group. And one
Okay.
of the questions that was asked of me is that did I ever see the time that I'd see a Black person being the chairman of the board of AT&T?
Okay.
Well, I said, nope. I said, because we're not sitting in the rooms with the overstuffed chairs, sipping sherry, making decisions. I said, because
Right.
decisions aren't made in the boardroom, they're made outside the boardroom. And
Sure.
that they just
Sure.
confirm and solidify the decisions in the
Mhm.
boardroom, but they have made those decisions externally. And
Right.
so it's important that you have external,
Mhm.
at least for me, and
Right.
because of the way I operated, because I was active, and I was very
Uh-huh.
vocal about,
Mhm.
expressing,
And
my thought.
because in a lot of instances you were the first, or there were
Yes,
only a few of you
yes,
at that time. So
right,
the example and the reputation that you
mhm,
had and that you built really maintained, the steps that other people could follow behind you. If you were
right,
just shucking and jiving, it could have potentially not only closed the doors for you, but closed the doors for other people. And so
yes,
that responsibility and weight of excellence was always kind of on your shoulder, but you never shied away from carrying it.
right. Plus, when I say relationships, when you get into, I'll just say internally within any company, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people, they get to a certain position and they think, okay, well, I'm better than these people at the lower positions. Okay.
No, sir. Right.
Me, me, I talk to everybody because I
Yes.
used to tell people, guess what, man? I talk to all the secretaries. If you want to know what's going on, talk to the secretary. They know what's going on because they know what the
Absolutely.
boss. Because I used to be able to pick up and call and I say, hey, I just heard such and such. What's going on? And they would say, well, don't tell anybody, but this is what's going on. And so,
Right, but
I
you had to be a man of integrity for them to be able to even tell you stuff like that.
precisely
Right.
because they knew
Right.
I wasn't going to go back and call and
Right.
put them in harm's way. But
Sure.
but there were other times, you wanted things done. Like sometimes, I wanted to expedite to get something
Mhm.
in,
Mhm.
and I know it going. And then I call and I find out, oh, Barry, is this your job? You see, yeah, I have this. He said, what you looking for? Well,
Right.
oh, and then normally it takes a while. Bill, we'll get that. I'll expedite that for you. See,
Absolutely, and they knew that if they needed something, they could come to you in the same way.
right.
But
And
and that's the other thing about relationship building
mhm,
is it can't be a one-way street. It has to
right.
be reciprocal, right? So you've got to be
Mhm.
able to not only rely on people, but also be a kind of person that people can rely on.
Precisely. And I built a lot of relationships because in 1980, I had the assignment of training all the middle managers at AT&T, and
Mm-hmm.
AT&T
Mm-hmm.
operating companies, which are 23 operating companies at that time. And
Right.
so that meant I had to be on the road. I
Mm-hmm.
would travel, and what I in the course that I taught, it actually would take 2 weeks, but they told me they didn't want the managers out that long, so I had to convert it down to 1 week, which meant long
Okay.
days.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
So
for
you had to
people.
make it condensed. It was concentrated. It
Right,
wasn't
and
watered
but it
down version.
also I had to deal with the fact that here's some old line managers, they've been around for a
Right.
while, and they used to going off to training, and they showing up, at these, and at that time we were having them at little 5-star resorts or hotels and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and people would show up with their golf clubs and their tennis rackets, and they'd be scheduling tee times or court times and thinking they're gonna get
Mm-hmm.
on, and I would start off the opening thing and say, well, be prepared for long days. We're going to be 14 hours and you're going to have homework afterwards. And
Right.
there would be, and I'd see jaws drop. What?
Like long, right. Not only is the day going to be long, when it's done, I still have work to do.
Right.
Right,
And
right,
so,
right. But that was a successful endeavor for you because the people learned a lot from your courses. Is that
and
correct?
that's where I think I share with you
Mm-hmm.
the first session I had to do was in Texas.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I was I knew, I saw, man, there's some old crusty dudes in Texas, man. And I say dudes because it was all a male dominated at that
Back
time.
then, yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Right,
You
right.
know, and by the way, when affirmative action came in, it just became white women came in more than black
Okay,
folks.
okay,
Okay,
right.
but it was the middle managers involved were all white and male.
And this was like what, late 80s, early
Uh, no,
early late 80s?
this is 1980, early
Okay,
80s.
early 80s. Okay,
And
okay,
so
okay,
1980 specifically.
okay,
So that year I spent on the road. I would
okay,
travel, and so I had these long hours. In fact, what I would do, so I'm getting ready to do my first one. I'm going to Texas. They told me the first one I'm gonna do down in Texas.
mm-hmm.
And so I said, oh man, I know I got to deal
Here
with
we
some of
go.
those. Here we go. So I came with the mindset that I had to be really prepared. Plus, I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
giving them bad news. You can't play golf. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have
Mm-hmm.
a chance to get on a tennis court or whatever,
Right,
to
right.
sit around. And so I was prepared for that. So I came in extremely prepared in terms of my subject matter and stuff
Okay.
and how I was going to deliver it and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, to make a long story short, I also had my boss had told me, but before you end, we'd end every session on Friday. That would be getaway
Okay.
day on Friday. And she said, Thursday, take them out for drinks and stuff.
Okay.
And so I said, well, do I have a budget? No, just whatever, And so Thursday I would go out and take for drinks. And that's when I found out, besides what the feedback that they did when they previewed the
Do the
course,
surveys and stuff. Right.
surveys and stuff. But a lot of them, after they had a drink or something, I had some said, Bill, you're a good old boy. I came in here, at such and such, and I thought you were gonna, but you're a good old boy, man. I learned a lot. I learned something from you,
Right.
man. I didn't know
Right.
this. I'm gonna take this back and try to use
Sure.
this, and
Right.
that in itself emboldened me. I said, wow, okay.
Yes.
But guess what? Every night I would go back and I'll prepare for the next day.
For the next
I
one.
wouldn't even go down in the lobby because I wouldn't want to run into anyone. I'd order
Right.
room service.
You wanted to focus on
I wanted to
bringing
focus
your
because
excellence
I
to the
knew if I
next.
went down in the lobby, somebody'd say, "Hey, Bill, come
Right.
on, you want to have dinner with us?
Right.
Have a drink?" And
Right.
no.
Right.
In my mind, I got to be ready for you tomorrow.
Exactly. Exactly. And so those relationships got built and expanded because of the excellence that you brought to them. So our last key
Mm-hmm.
is adaptability. And so right here, this definition is the quality of being able to adjust to new conditions, the capacity to be modified for a new use or purpose. So is this how you define adaptability, and how has it served you in maintaining
Yes, and
excellence?
now, in other words, a simple thing I would use is being able to deal with change.
Okay.
Okay,
Which is
because
inevitable.
inevitable. And as I said earlier, we're living in a fast-paced society that's
Mm-hmm.
constantly changing at a rapid pace. And so,
Right.
therefore, if you're not capable and of willing to make change, because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
resist change, and
Absolutely.
and those are the people that lose, because guess
Sure.
what? Things gonna keep going whether you decide to get in the stream or not. You're gonna be
Yes.
standing on the bank watching everybody else sail along while you're standing there because you refuse to accept the change that's coming along,
Sure.
because you're saying this
Yes.
is the way we used to do it, or the way we
Yeah.
used to do it. Well, guess what? It's a new day now. Learn something new,
Right.
and we can't do the same. We aren't doing the same thing that we used to do before, because
Mm-hmm.
we got
Mm-hmm.
technology really makes a lot of that happen, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that we, with the use of technology, that
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have before, and there's even more so today. I said I
Sure.
would, I would, if I was working in today's environment, ooh, I would be extremely different. What you can do with the iPhone,
Right.
this is you carrying a computer in your hand. And
Absolutely.
my first technological, I was always interested in techie stuff, gadgets,
Mm-hmm.
as my kids would tell you. So my
Okay.
first
Okay.
thing that I used to keep organized with was a
Palm
Casio
Pilot.
a
Oh.
Casio 5K.
Okay.
5K is all it had, is the memory. But my people used to say, if Bill put that thing in that little gadget, man, you better remember, because he gonna pull it up and remember. Because what I
That's
was
it.
trying to do is eliminate trying to remember stuff, and also
Sure.
using the old-fashioned method of, if I'm gonna do a follow-up, you put something in the folder and you put it in a follow-up file. This
Right.
is from the
Right.
30th, and you either you'd pull it out, or when I got a secretary say, well, here's all my stuff for today to follow up on.
Sure.
Well, the technology allowed me to do that immediately,
And
you
and
know,
and being adaptable.
and being
Right.
adaptive. You got to
Okay.
adapt to the changes,
Sure.
now, and be willing to adapt to changes. See, you got to be
Okay.
willing to adapt to change.
Right.
And see,
Right.
some people just aren't willing, they fight it.
Well, and that
And
takes a lot of effort as well, right? So the energy, I mean, it's not like, doing nothing. It's a lot of energy put into fighting it, the change, when you can at times just embrace it just as easy,
that's
right?
correct. That's
Just
correct.
as
And
easy.
if you embrace change, and see, now I embrace change.
Mhm, mhm.
I really
Because it's
embrace.
inevitable, so you're just waiting for it.
Right.
It's coming.
I
Right.
look at what's happening, and okay, this is a new thing that's going on. I embrace change. I look at now, I marvel at where technology is taking us. I mean, I can go out and um, walk out. I start my car before I get in, and
Mhm.
I get in, and if it's cold, my seats will heat up. I can turn on some music, and I can listen to a satellite radio and listen to all kind of channels, or I can listen to my personal music, what I want to listen to, or I listen to, I got CNN, I got MSNBC, I have all kind of stations on. So, I'm always trying to get information and using what's available to me. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's most important to me, in my experience. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time. We are almost at the minute mark, and we want to just wrap up. So, in terms of your final thoughts as it relates to, how to maintain a mindset of excellence, because, it really does go back to excellence. And if
Mm-hmm.
excellence is what you're looking to achieve, it's not perfection, right? Excellence
Right.
is a process. So,
Right.
what would you tell people as it relates to daily looking at being the most excellent version of yourself every day?
Well, the first thing is you have to be a positive mindset. As you know, I leave
Mhm,
a thought
mhm.
for the day. I started that for myself. I used to read
Yes.
something. I used to read something in the morning. I'd read something of a
Mhm.
positive nature to get me going. And before I go to bed, read something of a positive nature.
Yes.
And so now
Yes.
I started with a thought, and I started leaving it with family. And as you know, now others, I
Mhm.
share my thoughts. So you got to keep, number one, keep a positive thought. And secondly, you got to strive for, you got to expect excellence. You know,
Yes.
you got to be, and I use a term that I told my grandkids, my kids, is be the best you can be. If you're
Yes.
not being the best you can be, you're cheating yourself.
Absolutely.
So in other words, if you can do better, do better. Don't cheat yourself. And too many people cheat themselves. They say, well, if this happens, but I ain't gonna do this because I don't feel like it. They don't think nothing.
You're not hurting anybody but yourself.
Because you never know where opportunities are gonna come from.
Absolutely.
Somebody might just see you at something and just say, I like the way that person is going. And an opportunity you never considered just all of a sudden just grabs you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, I am grateful and thankful for that. As we close out, just want to mention to everyone that Heart to Heart, Healthy Heart Nation does these talks every third Friday of every month. So our next will be Friday, March 15th. And we ask you to follow us on Healthy Heart Nation on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And so with that, I would like to thank you all for your time. Bill, thank you for your dedication. And I know, could you just leave us with one thought for the day? Like, I know I have what your thought for today was for today. Should I just share it? Or do you have one?
Share it. Yes.
All right. So the thought that Bill shared with us today is meditation doesn't change life. Life remains as fragile and unpredictable as ever. Meditation changes the heart's capacity to accept life as it is. And so with that, I will say good evening. Thank you all for your time. And we look forward to seeing you again next month. Thank you.
Bye-bye.